Let's dive into our fireside chat session of the day on the topic Future of Work Strategy in the BFSI Sector, for which I would like to welcome Vaibhav Joshi, Chief Digital Officer, Equitas Small Finance Bank, Triveni Ravindaraja, India Sales Head, GoTo, Radhika Sehgal, Partner Technology, Ernst& Young. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Radhika Sehgal, Partner Technology, Ernst& Young, as she will be moderating the session. Over to you, ma'am. Look ahead to a great session.
Hello, everyone. I'm Radhika Sehgal, partner with Ernst& Young, and it's my pleasure to be here with our esteemed guests to discuss about future of workforce strategy in BFSI. With me, we have Vaibhav Joshi, Chief Digital Officer, Equitas Small Finance Bank, and Triveni, India Sales Head, GoTo. BFSI has been an accelerated digitization throughout the pandemic with zero touch financing across B2B as well as B2C channel. It's a new era where banks and technology companies have come together like never before. And a lot of this has happened over remote working. So, with this, I would like to get onto our discussion first. Triveni, I would like to hear from you. With pandemic turning now into endemic, hybrid work environment becomes the new normal. What should organizations, particularly those in BFSI sector, consider when it comes to IT support for their distributed workforce in order to drive a seamless employee experience?
Great. Thanks for the question, and I love that endemic word. I've not heard of it so far. Right? I'm gonna hire. Copy that from you. I think that's great. Yeah, I think the past 2 years, have forced our complete global community to restructure the way we work. Right? Which, like you rightly mentioned, has led to a hybrid operating model. Right? Like I guess even the way we are today on the video is a good proof of that, right? Some of us are at home, some of us in office. I guess this is how the future is going to be. I'd also like to, quote something from a recent white paper that I read by Frost and Sullivan that, almost, I may be wrong with the percentage a little bit. Maybe I think almost around, more than 55% of the teams are expected to be in office, right? Less than 10 days each month in the long term, and almost 98% of employees believe that the future of meetings will always include remote participants. So probably having a full house of participants who are doing in-person meetings will probably never be the case going forward. Now, these significant statistics, they tell us that organizational effectiveness will continue to completely and heavily depend on the way the IT leaders and the IT organizations' ability to ensure that the right technology has been deployed to keep your employees very collaborative, right? Now, I personally coming from GoTo from the collaboration industry, right? And we at GoTo have been pioneers with over 800,000 customers, right? Sorry, just pardon me. I'm going to brag a little bit about GoTo here, not too much though. Is that we have hosted almost 1 billion people joining offline meetings specifically during the pandemic, right? Not only meetings, classes, webinars, even teleconsultations in the healthcare industry, etc., right? So having that background, there are a lot of research that we have done, particularly during the pandemic, right? Because that threw a lot of challenges across the globe. So a couple of best practices probably I would like to share from by the virtue of that research is, what are some of the steps to ensure effective collaboration in the hybrid world. So the first and foremost would be that, it is very fundamental to think beyond video, and it's important to embrace flawless audio, right? Somewhere I think during this pandemic, and thanks to a lot of these virtual meetings, the importance of audio has got gets overshadowed by video. I mean, no doubt that video conferencing has, enabled the businesses, and it's helped us to keep it, helped us to keep the lights on. But what if the audio fails, right? The emphasis is then what happens? How does only video alone meetings impact your communication, right? So for the IT leaders, it's very important for them to look at a high quality audio plus video kind of tools for empowering this collaborative culture, right, which is mostly hybrid. Secondly, the organizations, I think, should deploy technology that strengthens collaboration, of course, but the first and the foremost would here be is they should be simple to use, right? Because flexible work means employees will need to connect on the go, right, from anywhere or any device, a car, a cafe. I mean, it's not going to be within the perimeter of the organizations, right? And this kind of connection will also be external to your organization. So it's very important that the employees have access to the right technology and the one that they don't have to spend too much time logging in. It needs to be at the click of a button. The third one is that IT leaders, on the IT leaders list, right? That this should also help them with the integration of the remote in-room meeting participants, right? So, like I said earlier, all members of the meeting should have the same experience, regardless of where they're joining from. They could be joining from Pittsburgh, they could be joining from Sydney, and you could be from India, right? But what is important is that it gives you that seamless kind of an experience, some for people sitting in the office and using the hardware, and for people sitting at home and using the software. So it needs to cater for those who are in office and those who are outside of the office, right? And specifically also when probably addressing, because these days obviously the town halls, the large audiences, conclaves like the one that we are having now, all these become extremely critical. So very important for the IT leaders to ensure that they choose a solution which is simple and ready to use, right? And none of this will be possible without the fourth and the final step is the flexibility for these solutions to be implemented and integrated with probably some of your internal systems that you already have, right? So the only thing, and it may sound very, very simple, but what we have seen is that people choose a more complicated solution than a simplified solution, and thereby spoiling the complete unified experience for both you as a customer and your IT administrator. Now, quickly coming to the second part of your question, which is the remote IT support, right? Now, the goals for the IT support also, I think, pretty much remains the same. Cater to wherever the work happens from, right? Now, IT support professionals have, especially during this pandemic, they have been facing a lot of challenges because earlier, it was the support was dependent on the location, but now they have to look at location agnostic approaches to work, right? And they also have to simultaneously seek to drive the key strategic goals of the company, right? So some of the complexities of the hybrid work, specifically from an IT leader's perspective, is now how do I secure, the first and the foremost is how do I secure the new working environment. The second one is how do I support workers at and away from office. The third is how do I connect workers with the right tools. And finally, how do I consolidate platforms that, and vendors and the cost management, etc. Right now, looking at it, the IT organization now need to see that how many people are working from home and how many might actually work remotely permanently. So they'll obviously need to come out with these personas, right? How many are hybrid, how many are working from home, and how many are permanently remote, right? Now, nobody can say for certain that, it depends on many factors. And probably this will continue, right? Continue to stay. So, therefore, what is important for us is to see, it's not to see where the work happens from, but how the work is happening. Now, what this means is that the IT support should be able to navigate multiple work environments, and have and come out with a strategy for location agnotism. That's a new term that we call it now in the IT support world, right? So the perennial needs in all work environments are supporting business continuity. I think that is the genesis of the your internal IT organization, right? If an individual is having a problem with their computer or mobile device, they need to support that and support fast to get up and running, because the IT support tool needs to have different ways to connect to your employees and help your help desk also into a remote support solution. And the next one is safeguarding these remote support sessions and data. Right now, obviously, thanks to the pandemic, the cyber criminals are absolutely kind of increased, right? So how can we reduce the risk of business disruption and potential liability for data or privacy breaches, right? With the increase specifically in distributed work and BYOD, right? And specifically in the sectors, in this particular sector where which is susceptible to more of cyber attacks, right? So be sure you can prevent these malicious actors from gaining access to your support tools. In fact, I mean, I can't name the company, but RBI in fact has very strongly recommended not to use a particular remote support tool because it's used by a lot of fraudsters, right? And the other one is ensuring flexibility across the IT environment. I think I've repeated this almost 3 times, so I'm not going to go into details of it. But I think, if I have to really conclude, future proofing IT infrastructure and support, whatever the future of work, might bring. That is because at the beginning of 2020, for example, nobody could have anticipated that a pandemic would strike, right? And radically impact workers globally. So what we need to look at is, how do we navigate these uncertainties to support the employees and the customers, right? So to look at it, when you're looking at your communication, I mean, if I have to summarize, if you're looking at your communication technology or support tools, always look at what is easy to deploy, easy to use, and probably more cloud. And I'm glad to say that we have seen in the last 2 years the BFSI sector embracing cloud technology, right? Specifically with the with the influx of the new age banks, where they are going cloud first. So I think these will probably help in an effective, hybrid working and supporting your employees.
Excellent, Triveni. In fact, very good points coming in from you. 98% feel that we will always have few participants joining remotely in any meeting. And here is one such classic example of three of us here. And now we are, some of us are working remote, some of us are working from office. But one very important element that you brought about here is the key element would always remain that the environment provided is very important now, and this also gives us an opportunity for cross border collaboration. And
Yes.
for that infrastructure as well as simplicity in tools, you
Yes.
specified that multiple number of times, easy to deploy, easy to use on cloud. That will be the key mantra for getting a seamless employee experience and best out of people. And you also talked about focus is not from where work is happening, but focus should now move on how the output
How
is
to?
maximized. Triveni, when you spoke about all of this, you also brought a very, very important element, security. You did touch upon cybersecurity in your conversation, and I would like you to go a little deeper on this. With a new work environment that extends beyond the perimeter of the office, how should organizations strengthen their cybersecurity posture to safeguard their business while
Yeah.
ensuring that the smooth running of their operations are going on?
Yeah. So thanks for that question, right? And I think it's more relevant for the sector that we are talking about, the BFSI sector, and I'm sure Vaibhav also will touch upon that when in his discussion. So just a quick background, right? So GoTo erstwhile was LogMeIn, and when it was LogMeIn, we had a security product called LastPass, right? Enterprise Password Management, and by virtue of that, we've done a lot of research with a couple of organizations to understand how this data breach and how the cyber threats have increased specifically during the pandemic, right? So I'd like to quote one of those statistics again here. I mean, there was a research done by DBIR, right? The Data Breach Investigations Report in 2021. And what was found that was 85% of most of the data breaches, right, a staggering 85%, involved a human element. Now, when we say human element, it could be phishing, it could be stolen credentials, and it could be human error, right? And almost 36%, 36% of breaches last year alone involved phishing, right? 11% more than before. So which means that the cyber criminals are on the prowl, right? While uh, they are becoming more and more sophisticated also, right? So which means vulnerability plus cyber threats is equal to the need for more secure remote connections that we have, right? And I think what was told earlier, right? I'm sure you all would have heard that data is the new oil, but I think right now connectivity is the new oil. I mean, imagine a world without connectivity, right? So, and unfortunately, these virtual connections have also given space for cyber criminals to grow, right? So, one of the things that we have found out is, and which is again the most ignored feature of any kind of a security environment, is the password, right? The usage of the password. Now a lot of people take it for granted, right? What is in a password? I mean, and I would just like to ask you a quick question before I move into this. How many, what do you think was the common, which was voted as the common password in 2021, which was used by the maximum number of people across the world? There was one particular term which was voted as the highest used password.
Password 1234.
No, just the 1234 that came second. Just password was the highest. Password being password. So I mean, this sounds very simple, right? But when we said that 85% of the breaches happened because of compromised credentials, which is again, when you create such easy passwords, it's very easy for the hackers to hack into our systems, right? And the other challenge is that we bring our home mindset to work, right? That is, we use more private personal applications than work related applications, right? It is, I think, told that on an average we use close to 125 applications, out of which 75% are personal applications. Now, when I said bringing your home mindset to work, it is that you're bringing the same passwords that you're probably using for your big basket or for your Gmail or for your bank accounts into the work as well. So what happens is, imagine, I remember when the big basket breach happened, right? I I'm guilty of doing this. My password with all my banks was the same as it was with big basket, right? And I mean, because I work for a security firm, I used to work then, it kind of popped up and it said that this password is compromised. I immediately had to go back and change all the other passwords. So the other thing I think for the IT managers would be important is education. Security education needs to be a part of any kind of implementation that we're doing, because there are these poor habits that we sort of get replicated from from our personal work to the professional work, right? So the common passwords, and the other myth is that we think that the complicated the password is, it's difficult to hack in. No, because I've had some of these conferences where participants have told me that I put an at and then ampersand and exclamation marks. No, the thing is, the longer the password is, the difficult it is for the hackers to break it. So, like, I know in our organization we have mandate of having a password, all our login passwords to be minimum 16 characters. It sounds crazy, but that's the fact, right? So I think promoting an enterprise password manager or a password vaulting becomes very, very important.
Excellent, Natriveni. You gave a lot of insights, especially on protecting the password. bringing banking password to other applications including work can be really really dangerous. Good statistics shared by you as well on 85% data breaches actually involves human element, and 36% of them are caused through phishing. So our employees are the weakest link at times, and hence education as well as upgrading the software to make it a little more complex when you're putting in passwords is an important element that
Yeah.
you highlighted, and thank you Triveni for
No, in
that.
fact, I'll tell you one. You take the recent data breaches, right? Or I think the famous one, like the Sony data breach. You will be surprised to know how the hacker got into the whole system, right? So this was, I think, one of the employees' Netflix password was put on a Netflix, or one of the personal accounts password was displayed on the soft board on a post-it. And I mean, and people maintain Excel for all the passwords. These are very, very uh, dangerous.
Absolutely, it is. And now with this, let's pivot this discussion in a little different direction. I want to talk a little bit more about digital first enterprises. And so, digital now is no longer just a new channel or an option. It's a matter for survival and essential for growth. In fact, there is another statistics, and Triveni, I've got inspired by you and hence started sharing statistics as well. So, the digital first enterprise will be half of the economy by next year, with more than 50% of world GDP contributed by digital first enterprises. And now, Vaibhav, I would like to move this discussion to you. One of the most important pillar for digitalization is accelerated innovation by enhancing customer experience through hyper personalized data and engagement. So, Vaibhav, please share your experience in enhancing the customer experience as well as engagement, and any examples of solutions that takes customer communication and experience to next level.
Sure, Radhika, thanks. And some very, very important points that, Triveni made in, those questions. And before I touch upon, innovations on the digital side, I actually wanted to, park a point that, while we are doing this meeting virtually, some are in office, some are at home or outside. I think the next generation is going to do these kind of meetings in metaverse. Okay, and when that comes, that is going to be the extreme next level. Okay, me and my a few of my colleagues were discussing just yesterday how we could eventually start doing get-togethers on metaverse after that wedding that happened on metaverse and so. So, yeah, Radhika, now see on the digital side, communication becomes extremely critical because what happens is whenever something new is embarked upon by an organization or by a bank, the communication of that particular activity is the key to the success of that particular activity. Okay. Uh, Especially when it comes to banking, because the underlying word that comes with banking is trust. When a customer parks money with you, he trusts you with that money, and it is it's a very highly regulated environment, banking. Hence communication becomes extremely critical. Nowadays we have WhatsApp university on which so much gyan comes on coming in, and there is all unverified stuff that keeps on getting in. And right from how simple it is to for somebody to do a UPI fraud, to how complex it is to maybe do a banking through a third party app and so on. So hence that communication becomes extremely critical. What I feel is it is extremely important that the communication is carried out in the medium or the method that your customer understands. For example, you have millennial as a customer, you have white collared, blue collared workers as your customer, salaried as your customer, you have pensioners as your customer. Okay, you have housewives as your customer, you have probably MSME as your customer, you have SME as your customer, you have government as your customer. Now every customer is going to interact with you in a very different manner. Okay, some may interact with you through the branches, some may interact with you through a mobile app, some may interact with you through your neo banking app, some may interact with you through a third party app, like a Google Pay or a Phone Pay. Some may interact with bot banking also today. Social media banking, bot banking is a very a common thing today. And when the customer actually interacts with you through that channel, it is upon the financial institution to ensure that all sorts of communication gets passed on through that particular medium. Let me give you certain very basic and rudimentary examples. Okay. Now, a lot of loan repayments, there were issues during COVID times. Okay. A lot of these NBFCs, a lot of the SFBs face issues because the type of customer they were catering to, the collection agent used to go knock the door and collect the money. Okay. What happened was there when technology was brought in through the method of a WhatsApp based communication, where the collection agent, forget, I'm not even talking about a complete digital journey, I'm talking about a collection agent. He knew that I have to collect from these 200 customers, and he would initiate, or the system would initiate, a conversation with the customer. You will not believe, a majority of the customers were more than happy to make the repayment. Okay. What was happening was that lack of communication and the lack of physical presence of that particular collections guy who would go knock on the door and do the collections, that had caused that entire confusion. Okay. Now if you look at a millennial, okay, a millennial wants everything here and now on the mobile phone, everything here and now. Now, when he wants everything here and now, he's used to, social media, Instagram, everything is online, e-commerce is online. He would never think about going to a bank. So much so that, millennials today don't even want cards. They would just keep one flashy card. Rest, everything has to be virtual. Everything QR. Okay, just scan the QR, tap payment and scan the QR. This is done. Okay, they want to, when they go to Domino's or a pizza to eat a pizza, they even split the bills. Okay, there are so many things. Investments, right swipe and investments are done. Okay, move over tender, financial, investments are now done through right swipes. So now what happens is, millennials as a category, when you're talking about them, the communication has to be designed through the mediums. And for that, those kind of technologies have to be brought in. Okay, now there are platforms which are available in the market which actually cater to all this type of things. So there are platforms which would take care of your all, let's call this channels. The platforms would cater to your digital channel, which is the internet banking, mobile banking channel. The same platform can cater to your branch banking channel, where an assisted relationship manager can actually, ensure that the right communication goes. Then there are platforms, the same platform creates to the social media channel. This same platform also ensures that the communication, and in fact a customized communication, goes through APIs, through your partner apps, to the customers who are transacting to you via APIs. Okay, now whether it's an SMS, whether it's a WhatsApp message, whether it's a notification, whether it's an email, okay, or whether it's your maybe a bot speaking out to your customer. Okay, whether it's your video banking officer who is sitting across on a a PC and talking to the customer, that communication through that platform is the key, and that is what all banks are adopting today. Radhika.
No, absolutely. And now, Vaibhav, very good points that you have talked about, especially in and around understanding the different customer personas from Gen X to millennials to Gen Z, and then designing a solution. That's very, very important. With this, let me move to the next big element here, Vaibhav. Companies, we know that companies that do not innovate fast enough for their customers will lose them to competition. We have multiple such examples: Kodak, Nokia, General Motors, Hummer, Xerox, BlackBerry. We can go on and on. All of them failed due to lack of adoption to digital. But when digital is such a key and important to the success today, let's also talk about what are the key challenges where we are facing when it comes to digital disruption, and how prepared, especially is BFSI industry to tackle it.
So Radhika, digital, implementing digital, thinking digital is nothing but, adapting to the newer changes that are happening. Now, what is this, juggernaut called digital? It has come up in the last 7, 8, 10 years. Before that, we never heard about digital. though the things were there, but it was all tech, and before tech it was IT, and before IT it was computing. Okay, and now a part of that has become digital. Yes, there are a lot of advancements that have happened, but what happens is the basics remain the same. At the end of the day, change management is the most important critical factor when we are adopting to digital transformation. Because what happens is, in traditional banking, okay, now let's classify. I will not actually get into classification of banks, because then a lot of my banking friends would not like those statements. But when we talk about banking as an industry, uh, there is a lot of archaic systems and traditional processes which are in place because of the way the regulations were framed. When the process, how it works is, a product comes in. So earlier RBI used to roll out those products. Now NPCI rolls out those products. There are regulations around those products. There are compliances. Okay, then there are platforms which are created, and then banks create those products. They tie up with switches. They plug into these products, and they start transacting that service. Now, if we look at how initially ATMs were not interoperable. Your a bank card would only work on your ATM. Then national financial switch came in, interoperability came in. Before that, master visa came in, networks came in. Eventually we realized we need to create something like a rupee, bring down the costs. Now when these changes happen, then Aadhaar was launched, then JAM came in, Jandar Aadhaar Mobile, AEPS, UPS, so on. So when this product gets launched, within banks also, there is a lot of resistance in terms of the processes, the ownership, the digital journey, and that particular time when this product framing happens, when the product management committee approves it, that is the most critical time. Okay, if you have managed that particular time and then you go ahead and launch the product, then there isn't going to be an issue. But during that time, taking everyone on board, primarily compliance, operational risk, operations, information technology, the business, which can be a liability, asset, or payment business, and then your customer support. So once you take all these departments into consideration, and then you go ahead and actually tie up, bring everyone on board, create the digital journeys and processes, and carry out a lot of capacity building. Okay, because at the end of the day, when you are trying to do something new, and especially if it is digital in nature, okay, you have people who are product process experts, you have people who understand rules and regulations, compliances, risks, and so on. But what and how that product is going to function, you don't have people to understand it. That's a new product. Okay, so at that point on time, it is extremely important that capacity building is carried out in a manner that everyone comes to the same level. Second, what also happens is, in a dynamic industry as BFSI, there is a lot of churn that happens nowadays with the fintechs coming in. So any kind of digital innovation we try to bring in, it is extremely important to ensure that the team that works on it stays on for a particular time, and there is always some kind of a backup plan, because the shelf life of this any idea nowadays is becoming small. Okay, so earlier it used to be, if you want to launch something, you would go ahead and 2-3 years nobody would people who try to understand it, copy it. Now that's not the case. You want to launch an innovation, within 2 months you will have 10 people competing with you in that same thing. Okay, so much so that your key guys, they will pick up and then they will launch that same product. So there you need to ensure that when you have created some new digital innovation at that point in time, those things are also taken care of. And I'm going to touch upon something very basic that Triveni is going to agree with me: documentation. Because what happens is, whenever you create any new product, whenever you create any new process, whenever you bring in any kind of new innovation, if it is not documented in a particular manner, then the eventually at some point in time you will have a lot of people working on it when you don't need a lot of people working on it. But at a broader level also, what happens is keeping up with changes happening in the technology. Okay, because say I was to say that, hey, I'm going to launch a platform on blockchain. Okay, I'm going to launch a platform on blockchain where we are going to allow international remittances and so on and so forth. Now what happens is, and trade documents and so on. Now what happens, Radhika, over there is that technology is changing so rapidly. There is so much innovation happening at the technology level that when I'm talking about creating a platform, I have to make sure I keep on adapting to technology. Hence, the team that actually works on this also has to be upgraded from time to time to keep at par with the technology. What is also important is, and where I started my discussion, that tomorrow we may be having this meeting in metaverse, or our next generation may be having that in metaverse. Now things like NFTs are coming in. Okay, things like IoTs are coming in. Okay, very soon I think AR VR will also come in, and AR VR will start playing a very, very important role in this virtual world and so on. So when we talk about these kind of complexities, I'm not even touching upon AI, BI, bots, because that is something that is become a very much normal today. Okay, maybe 3 years back it was the next big thing. Today it's very much normal. Every banks have deployed it, every institutions have deployed it, not just for a conversational or a transactional purposes, but also for internal process digitization perspective, where a lot of those manual processes are digitized by bot and the productivity has shot up through the roof. But when we talk about these kind of upcoming technologies, and what kind of an interpretation that would have for what kind of a renderation it would have, then the only possible, and assuming that all these challenges are met, and the only thing that I can think about is, you remember those sci-fi movies that used to come in, Tom Cruise and everyone, and there would be a virtual no screen, and he would just flash something and something would come up. He would do small, big, this. So those kind, and that is eventually going to happen. Okay, but when it happens, are we going to be ready for it? We have to understand that change is the only constant. If we are able to understand it, then we will definitely be able to keep up with any kind of digital innovation, transformation, or disruption that happens, Radhika. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Vaibhav. Change is the only constant. Shelf life of any idea is small. You also talked about technology is changing so rapidly that we are like on a treadmill of change. And the biggest challenge that you pointed out is resistance to change. And most important element to overcome this is change management, ways of working, change, as well as upgrading and retaining talent. And you also brought about the fact that BFSI is leading the change and touchless transactions. Thank you so much. And with this, we come to an end of this wonderful discussion. We went into discussion of remote working to hybrid working to working now in a probably in a metaverse world. And it was a very, very interesting conversation. Thank you very much. I would request you to stay on while Elets Technomedia presents to you your virtual certificates. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Radhika, Triveni, and Weber for joining us. Thank you, speakers, for joining Elets third virtual CIF Conclave and Awards Fireside Chat today on the pertinent topic Future of Work Strategy in BFSI Sector. It was wonderful discussion with key insights from the speakers on remote and hybrid work environment. I would say we will also cover security aspect element, what Triveni was covering, earlier, on how organization can strengthen their cyber security posture, to safeguard their businesses, the key challenges coming up with digital disruption, and how prepared we, as in BFSI industry, is to tackle and overcome these challenges. Thank you so much, Weber, for your inputs here. I'm sure there will be a good takeaways for the larger audience. We would now like to share a token of appreciation to all the speakers for joining us today. I would request my backend team to please display the online appreciation certificate, please. All right. So the first one goes to Radhika. Radhika, thank you so much for brilliant moderation of this fireside chat today.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Triveni.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Triveni, for joining us. It was wonderful insights coming from you.
Thanks, Rehan. Thanks for
Thank you,
inviting
Vaibhav.
us.
Thank you, Triveni. Thank you, Vaibhav, for joining
Thank
us
you so
today
much.
and sharing your valuable inputs. I think we can put this session to the end now. Thank you so much for your valuable time and inputs. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone.